So let me ask you it on a time frame for like PulseChain. I mean, like, what do you think? That this question from Checks My Pulse kind of makes sense too. How does PulseChain first year compare to EC first year so far? Um, the relation of those two, how far does PulseChain lag behind Ethereum starting to tick up? Because I mean, again, I think we're really waiting for all of the alts, not just PulseChain, to see Ethereum perk up. So if you want to answer Check's question there and then take it another direction, just kind of give us your PulseChain layout, how Pulse versus PulseX may perform, Ink, Hex, wherever you would like to go. Just as far as the timeline or where we were looking in the PulseChain ecosystem.
Well, the early days of ETH, like obviously this happened a lot faster. Also, the market is just so much different. It's so hard to compare these things now because we're literally a fork of something that's like 8 or 9 years old now. So it's
Right.
like, and there's hundreds of competing networks. And so, yeah, it's a tough place to be in because this is where Pulse goes into its existential crisis mode, and it has to do something significant to gain favor from the market. And we've all been saying that it's going to be the green candle action that's going to do it. And I still think that that's really all it's going to take is some serious inflows to the chain, and it's just going to force the market's hand. They're just going to have to come over here to try to get a piece of the pie. But it's really the only way you get to be a douchebag on camera for a year or two as a founder and still have a thing that becomes successful is if you just have so much money that it doesn't matter, and you basically force the market's will, kind of the same way that you force the market's will on the EHEX thing a little bit. So I think you guys said earlier about just how this chain is in a unique situation, like how we're in a bull market, but PulseChain is effectively on paper looks like it's in a bear or like looks like it's in a bad place. But remember that we're all trading right now EHEX at like 10 to 15 cents right now, if you're talking in Pulse terms. So it's like you got to reframe it a little bit. But so effectively, like those that were early on the sacrifice and went in heavy, they're still playing in a bull market while the rest of us all have to play in a bear market. So it's kind of like an unfair game right now in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's why there's so much opportunity with these tools on this chain to try to get ahead and amass a bigger amount of units of these coins that you want to accumulate. So like I think you should take the opportunity as you can to learn the skills you need to advance your position on the network and just try to consume as much digital real estate as possible on PulseChain, because the meta game is completely different than just buying and staking Hex for sure.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go, whether it's like LP providing or if you are into some of legitimate like meme communities now and stuff like that. There's a million different platforms to get involved with right now. I'm curious what you feel about. Oh, we just lost him. Maybe it was the weather. I don't know. I know he said he's getting the downpour there. So
yeah, his internet might have dropped off.
Yeah, no worries. I think we got. If that's all we got, that was actually. Oh, there he is. Can you put it? There we go. Yeah, I don't know. I figured the downpour got you there.
Got hit by lightning.
Yeah. I am curious. So we were talking about like the PulseX thing a minute ago. Like when we do see this ecosystem, I know this seems like a foreign concept to many at this point, but if we do see this ecosystem ever go up, what do you think it looks like for like people have talked a lot about PulseX and Ink being these like they have run the hardest basically every time that we do see a pump, it seems like. Do you think we see that when we see the ecosystem start to go up again? I know other people have recently been talking about Hex potentially being the one to do that. It's taken a huge beating, obviously, over the last few weeks. I think Hex actually is at its low, correct me if I'm wrong, against Pulse ratio-wise. Maybe not so now that Pulse has come down so much, but recently it was. Yeah, but which tokens do you think look like they'll really slingshot when we start going back up and maybe catch people off guard? Or how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so PulseX is actually doing well. And if you're not measuring the dollar, which if you have bags on this chain, you should be measuring your success in Pulse terms. Now, if you're going to leave the chain, then yeah, you want to measure your things against ETH and BTC, and that's a whole other level of skill. But I think a lot of us believe that Pulse can do many X's, and so we just need to overperform that with whatever coin. And PulseX is a perfect example of a coin that there's less and less of them every day, and and that's getting bought and burned off the market just through the LP. And so this is why the price of this coin is increasing against Pulse every day. It's up 84% over 212 days against PLS. It's in this like channel, and I think the target is parity. Like it's going to go 1-to-1 and perhaps even beyond this cycle. And this shift in narrative needs to hit still. Like most people don't get that's going to happen. It's time to start looking at PulseX and Inc. as like the things that are going to perform really well on this chain, and it's going to kind of drag everything else up with it. But that doesn't mean that Pulse won't do well or something. And then in terms of Hex, like obviously the combined Hex price is pretty beat up. And in Pulse terms, it's not made a new low yet. So the combined Hex is like how much is it up off this wick? Like 46%. And interestingly enough, like eHex is actually gaining on.
I think we're losing him again.
Looks like his powers and light flickered and everything.
Oh shit! Yeah, I see that.
We lost him again. I think or maybe his internet went out and he froze.
Yeah,
but
one of the two. We'll leave him there and see. Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird to have him just sitting there frozen. I'll take him off for now. We'll see if he pops back in. Yeah, I know we're supposed to get that. I don't know when that's going to happen, but we'll see.
It rolled through here earlier. We got a hell of a storm, so I think it blew by us.
Batten down the hatches.
Either way, I think what he's saying is, with the buy and burn happening all the time, PulseX is looking super strong. I don't know if you want me to. He finally did dropped out.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. You can pull it up.
But let's look at the PulseX chart against Pulse here.
Yeah. That concept that he said of them actually hitting 1-to-1. I mean, do you think that's a real possibility? I mean, that to me would be insane. I mean, we haven't seen 1-to-2 is basically as good as we've gotten. And that alone has been strong as hell. So if that were to happen, all I'll say is I like my position, but
look at this run. I mean, this is PulseX running.
Yeah, it's not up yet. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Hang on.
Sorry. There you go.
There it is. It's a hell of a run. I mean, this is the PulseX versus Pulse. And right now it's just under half. So yeah, I mean, it's just starting to really run against it. I don't know.
Yeah,
we got a couple flat. Oh wait, never mind. This is a 15-minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're on a short time frame there. There we go.
Either way, this is the daily. Oh, the daily's not looking so good. 4 hours looking better, but the daily.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I think it's because Pulse has gone down so much. So yeah, usually when we start to get downward pressure, you're going to see PulseX suffer. I know it's had a really rough day, but that most recent green candle, what's the time on that? Or these couple here? Like, I'm curious the day of that rotation. Yeah, that one. I wonder if that was
this was day, maybe. June 20th, and I have a feeling it was.
That seems about right. Yeah, that seems about
day
right.
of that major swap from Pulse to PulseX. So yeah, this obviously took a nice run up that day. There's been a couple major big buy candles here on this chart. So. Yeah, overall, look at the structure that it's building. It's just constant up.
That's insane. Yeah,
and that's goes to what Axis was just saying, that there is a nice trend line. You could draw some nice lines on here. How it's just continuously trending upward. So
it's amazing. To look at that chart and know that that's not like a just PulseX versus USD, to know that's a ratio right there of a DEX against the gas token.
Right.
That is insane. How well that is.
Let's leave that there and we'll see how well, even if this does pull back and retest it, whatever, we could definitely, it doesn't really play out into there, but at least from here up, it's been holding that line pretty well. So
that's very encouraging. And that gigantic, all that green from where your line starts there, I'm assuming that's probably March, whenever we saw like millions injected into PulseX.
Beginning of January is right in here.
Okay. Oh yeah, we did move up then. I think in March you're probably going to see some
Yeah.
good action too. So just the fact that, you know, we had all those money inflows and you've seen it continue the upward trajectory at long after that, you know,
Yeah.
even while the ecosystem's falling, like Pulse, as it falls, in theory, like when you were looking at the intraday, PulseX is usually going to come down pretty hard with it. But man, that is insane.
Yeah,
Super,
checks
super
my
strong.
pulse. There's a big W formation there for sure. That's
Mhm.
you know, you're looking at this W, and then it goes. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's usually a very bullish sign when you see a W like that.
It looks really, really good for sure. I had one more point on that, and I think I lost it. So maybe we can move on. But yeah, oh yeah, I was just going to say we've talked about this before, but imagine this trajectory for PulseX. It might have been Axis we talked about with this before, but PulseX goes from, you know, pre-Pulse launch. You know, I won't name their names, but a couple people in particular, like, oh, dude, God tier tokenomics, this thing's gonna 14,000x. I don't know why that was the number, but that's what we kept hearing over and over. Then PulseChain launches. We see that 3 times the people that sacrificed for Pulse sacrificed for PulseX. 3 times the funds were sacrificed. So of course it just absolutely tanks in comparison to Pulse.
Right.
Looks horrible. It's a redheaded stepchild. Everybody's making fun of it. It's a joke, literally. Now its ratio is holding up super, super strong. And imagine, obviously, I don't think 14,000x is even remotely on the table, but this redemption arc of PulseX now, where it actually does end up being the best returns in the ecosystem, would be very fascinating.
Yep. Well, it
yeah.
goes back to that time issue, man. Who's to say 14,000x can't happen? But on what time frame, right? I mean, 5-6 years. I think that's how long it took Ethereum to do a 14,000x. It was 6 years or so. And depending on where it launched in the cycle, I don't remember where. I think it was 2015 when it launched, which put it 2 years prior to the top of 2017. So, you know, there's a lot of those things that you've got to kind of take into account as well. On what time frame? You know, Richard has always said he designs his things to do those type of X's. PulseChain, well, I don't know how you really design a fork, because there isn't a whole lot of design, right? There's some extra parameters that were added a little bit faster, the ability to, you know, have it cheaper to buy a validator, obviously become part of the network, those type of things. But there isn't a whole lot of development. Now PulseX is a little bit different because I think this is, you know, pretty original with the buy and burn. There aren't a whole lot of buy and burns out there, or there weren't at that time. Now there are. Obviously, it's become, you know, a popular type thing. You see more and more of these where they're buying the token up and burning it. So, yeah, that one I can totally see. So, you know, maybe we do look at it and say, well, that was original. That creation, I could totally see if it was designed to do that over time. Pulse, we're just kind of relying on what happened with Ethereum, and you know, it did a 14,000x. Why can't Pulse? So that's where those numbers came from. You know, the numbers, like we said, everybody had so many of them. You see down for a while it finds its floor, and people are going to sell. And there was a lot of big bag holders that are no longer here. It's pretty interesting.
How about it? Yeah.
You know, the less of those that we have, the less that this ecosystem weighs, and the less that they can sell later when it does go up. So, you know, that's why we always say it's important to wash some of these people out, these weak hands, get them out now while we can, so that we can move on and we can go higher. They'll buy back eventually, but they'll buy back higher, and that will be part of the green candles that keep the other new people coming in as well.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's been part of RH's, you know, not that he's doing anything really to affect it, I don't think, but I think that's been a hopeful goal of his mentally, not thinking for him, but I think that it's like, hey, yeah, like get everybody out that you possibly can right now. And I think his intentions have been toward that, and why not? I would feel the exact same way. So I'm with you.